Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Preity Upala, how are you doing?
Namaste and good morning. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, we met at the Freedom Fest, the 2023 Freedom Fest in Memphis, and that was just earlier this month. And so, tell tell us about yourself, a little bit about yourself, uh, where you're from, how you grew up, and talk a little bit about your childhood and what brought you to the Freedom Fest.
Okay, wow. Long story short,
Sure.
I grew up in the Middle East. I lived there for much of my childhood. And then my family moved to Europe briefly before they moved to Australia. And went to university in Sydney, Australia. I was in the corporate sector. I worked as an investment banker and a management consultant before I won a scholarship to study in New York. And when that happened quite magically, I knew that my life was going to change. And I never looked back. I thought this is good. This is a new chapter in my life. And I think this is really my purpose. And I'm going to do it. So I actually bought a one-way ticket and moved to the other side of the world to a place that I had never been to. So it was quite I took the plunge in the deep beyond, I guess. And here I am. I live in Los Angeles now, and I do many things. I originally came here for film, but now I do work in media. I do a lot of work in politics as well. My areas of expertise are the geopolitics and the foreign affairs, diplomacy, soft power, that sort of stuff. Work with think tanks. I have my own firm, speak around the world. I write extensively on these issues. And of course, I'm obviously still in Hollywood. I still shoot all the time, but at the moment I'm in the role of a producer, putting together a TV show to pitch to Hollywood studios. So I look forward to being a creator and a host very soon. Yeah, it's been quite the journey, I think, from Sydney, Australia, actually all the way from the Middle East to here in America.
Well, you're definitely not bored. Um, you have a lot of stuff going on, and you have done a lot of things. And it seems like we're freezing. Okay, there we go. Um, it seems like you have a lot of. I mean, it doesn't just seem like you obviously have lots of interests. I'm similar in that way. There's lots of different things that I'm interested in doing, and so just trying to schedule things and coordinate things and set up like sort of a platform or a structure that can accommodate all the different kinds of things that you want to do is its own sort of challenge.
Mhm.
And associating with people uh, that sort of understand that can be even more challenging to find the kind of folks that will support that structure. Uh, so one other thing that you do, it seems like you're a podcaster also, right? Can you tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about the Preety experience?
yeah. Well, I do. Yes. So I have my own show, The Preety Experience, and it's online. It's audio as well as a video one. I have plans to actually start a new one. I want to pitch a different kind of show. But in the
Mm.
past, The Preety Experience, because I do so many media appearances and media engagements, it was really a storehouse of all of my different interviews, TV, radio, film, online, over so many years. uh, but now I realized I'm not just a good, I guess, guest, I'm a very good interviewer too. So I have a list of thought leaders, political leaders that I'd like to have on my show. So that's, I think maybe there'll be a new avatar of that show, and that I'll be doing that shortly. So I look forward to that. So I don't know the new face of the Preity experience. It might not even be called the Preity experience, but it's great. It's great speaking to people from all different political leanings and backgrounds. I think with what I do, I have to be very careful and sensitive. I'm genuinely an independent person. I'm very neutral. So because I need to be able to criticize everybody and also give credit to everybody when it's due. And I have to be focused on the facts and truth. And I've noticed that not just in the US, but globally, this space is, there is no nuance here. It is very polarized, it's very tribal, and people are in one team or the other. Even the so-called neutral, independent folks are now leaning one way or the other. And I just don't find almost anybody who's genuinely neutral, very, very few people. And especially in America, forget about it. They will be in one camp. And you can tell by their tone, their questioning, their guests, and so on. So I think me, in whatever way I manifest in this space and beyond, I really do want to be that voice of reason and truth, because when I look for research and information, I have to do so much research, and I have to really go all around the world to get the details on what it is I'm researching. And it's hard. Everybody seems to have, it's all narrative, it's all, every outlet is a propaganda machine, paid or unpaid. And it's very dangerous because you're never getting the real picture, So I think truth is very important.
Yeah, that's yeah. I'm glad you said that. The tribalistic sort of thing. It's okay to belong to a tribe. That's fine. And there are aspects of belonging to a tribe which are beneficial, right? However, if you're a tribalist, that's problematic, especially when you're trying to, uh, take in new information and, allow that information to actually impact what you think, because, I use this illustration frequently, because conversation is always an opportunity to learn. It's always an opportunity to learn something, right? So, but what happens in the news, we'll say, the news media, is you'll have somebody that's on the left, somebody that's on the right, and they'll say their talking points. Uh, but then when each one of them go to the next media appearance, they've not changed anything that they say, which is evidence that they're not actually listening. They're not actually taking any new information. And I think that's inherently problematic. Now, I heard, now I watch all kinds of media, and we know that Ben Shapiro is also pretty biased in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that he says that I totally agree with is, if you want to find out the details, the facts about a particular uh, subject, topic, occurrence, whatever, then if you get something that's left leaning, you get something that's right leaning as a source. The stuff that doesn't agree, that's opinion. And the stuff that does agree, those are the facts. And, but that's not really the way that people gather information, is it?
No, because even, unfortunately, even the facts that they're presenting, so the stuff that's not opinion, the stuff that each side is presenting as evidence, facts, the sources they cite, even those are questionable, even those are agenda driven. And you see this a lot with conflicts. I mean, something like war, either past or present, I mean, it's very black and white. There is one truth as far as war.
Thanks for watching my video so far. There's all kinds of ways that you can support below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Also, become a channel member where you'll get access to all of the archived videos. Now, back to the
Very
video.
black and white. There is one truth as far as war is concerned, and they can't be 10 different versions of the truth. You know, there's, you know, a war happened, an event took place, two sides were involved, who started what and how did it end. Like, these things shouldn't be that debatable if you're being truthful. But now, whether it's in the case of this current conflict, or so I could name so many past conflicts, you still have the two sides. They can't even agree on the basics of what happened and why it happened and when it happened and who started it, right? So, and that's, you know, war is not something that's debatable, but every other issue actually is very debatable. Things like race, culture, religion, society, you know, the law, all of that stuff. So you can only imagine how biased those other issues will be. It's just and people get so passionate, they get so emotional, they get so personally invested and involved. And it's very important to be dispassionate about it and take yourself out of the equation, take the emotion out of it, and just state the facts either way, you know. And that we're not seeing in legacy media or even in the independent so-called media space. It's you know, that they are also become mouthpieces for political parties and big pharma or big tech. So, you know, for somebody who's really trying to seek the truth out there, it's a tough job.
Yeah, there's a lot of historical revisionists.
Yes.
It's full of this. Okay, so you've spent quite a bit of time in Hollywood, and I wanted to ask you this question. So I know that many Indians didn't like the Slumdog Millionaire movie.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on this movie?
Firstly, it was a movie that was shown from it wasn't a Bollywood movie. It was a British movie co-produced with Hollywood studios about India and about a specific, you know, topic in India. So it wasn't a movie that was written, directed, produced in India by an Indian crew or an Indian director. That's the most important thing. People think, oh, this is a Bollywood movie or this is an Indian movie. No, it's not. It's it's a older English director with his worldview of India. And I'm sure he spent a lot of time in India, but he's not Indian, and nor does he live in India. So his worldview is a certain way. I think in trying to paint a sympathetic picture on India from his understanding, unfortunately, what he ended up doing and what most, let's say, Westerners trying to portray the real India, what the trap that they fall into is they end up sensationalizing the negative aspect. So it becomes let's call it a poverty porn movie. This is a pity porn movie that people are supposed to watch. You know, white people around the world are supposed to watch and feel sorry for India and then feel better about themselves. And that's just not the reality at all. If you have ever been to India, if you go to India, you'll realize it's quite the opposite. If you go there and then you come back to the US, you'll feel sorry for Americans, how they live, how despite having all the goodies, you know, of the developed world and being supposedly this great superpower, how they think, how they act, how empty a lot of people here are. you will actually feel sorry. You'll be like, oh my God. So I didn't. So India is so multifaceted. There's literally a billion things you can touch on, and he touched on a part of it. It's much bigger than that. And I wish it was more nuanced, or I wish it was a movie about something completely different, because I think you can tell the same story, that you can make the same points but different storytelling. Having said that, it did very well. So, I mean, I don't know. It's good in a way. Now, if you look at RRR, that's different. That is the opposite of Slumdog. That's a movie about the Indian freedom movement. Now, everybody loved that. Indians love that, and Westerners love that, because it was sincere, it was historical, it was a real movement, real, it was a hypothetical situation if two freedom fighters were to meet, who are quite different in their own way, but they both were fighting for freedom for India. How would that chemistry be? And it would have been incredible. And so it's a beautiful story, and I have never met anybody who's watched RRR and didn't have a huge smile on their face and didn't have this incredible admiration for the Indian freedom movement. And a lot of Americans don't know about that story. It was genuinely, I think, informational and educational, I would say. So you would come out of that movie actually learning factual history about India's history. And that's a huge service. And it was done with Indian nuances and Indian sensibilities. And actually, it's a South Indian movie. It's not even a Bollywood Hindi movie. It's a movie in another language completely. And they have been even more clean and pure in the way that they have narrated that. So I'm so glad that RRR got its glory at the Oscars and beyond. Yeah.
That's great. So talk to us a little bit about India's role in the global economy. So I watched. So you had a premiere. One of your, it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, on your YouTube channel, and I watched that whole thing. It was fascinating, very interesting, and you you have a particular perspective on what you think India is capable of doing as far as becoming a superpower. Um, uh, can you talk a little bit about India's role in the
Absolutely.
global? Yeah,
Firstly, thank you for watching that. And there's many more interviews that are in the, I'm gonna be releasing them. It's all edited and good to go. These are past interviews, and the latest one from the Freedom Fest of the one that we attended is being edited right now, so that will be put up, I think, soon. But it's a similar message. So my worldview is, it's funny, it's not an Indian worldview, it's not an Indian perspective, it's actually the global perspective, it's an international perspective. What tends to happen is, if you speak in America at these American events, you'll have a panel, you'll have several American economists, right? They tend to look at all these things like geopolitics and geoeconomics from the view specifically of the US, and then beyond that from a Western perspective. Now, you travel around the world and you go to similar summits and think tanks. My view is pretty much it's the normal view. Everybody agrees with that. They get it, that's what the numbers point towards too. But it's so fascinating because I speak around the world on the same issues, and when I speak in the US, it's very, it's taken very well. People are really accepting. They're so interested to know more. But it's interesting that that for them it's something new. Sometimes they're hearing it for the first time, or think, oh, I didn't look at it that way, or I didn't know that fact. So it's just interesting. I think my big criticism of just Americans in general is you have to be more educated and well versed in what's going on in the world around you. I think Americans are too insular. They only look at the world from their point of view, and they don't know enough and they don't care enough, I think, about what's going on around them globally, and they have to, because otherwise it's going to be a rude awakening. You're going to wake up a few years from now, because the world is changing so much, and it's already changed. Gone are the days of the one power. It's not the UK. The empire is dead. We don't live in a world where the US is the only power. And we have also moved away from the bipolar world, it was only it was only the US and China. Now we are in a multipolar universe, and there are genuinely many different power centers, and there are new powers emerging, and there are old powers declining. This is just the way of the world. And as we move on into the next decades, it's going to become even more prominent. So India plays a great role in this new multipolar world. And it's really the Asian century, as I always like to say. I speak a lot about this. It really is, because 2 of the top 3 economies in the world are from Asia. The 2 biggest countries in the world are in Asia. And more than half of the global growth today come from just 2 countries, India and China. And moving forward, that is only going to expand. And at a time where we are seeing zero growth in Europe, almost negative growth in certain places, in Europe, in UK, and we're talking about a recession here. And in America, we are lucky to have a 1% growth next year. You have a country like India that's going to grow. It's going to max out at 7% next year, consistently for the next 5 years, probably the next decade or so. That's ridiculous stability and a ridiculous rate of growth for already the fastest growing economy. The China story is a little different, and I'll talk about that later. But I think India is very different. It's the largest democracy in the world. It's a nuclear power. The median age is very young. While you look at other countries in Asia, they're very aging population. Their demographics is against them. I think in India's case, that 1.4 billion population actually becomes their greatest asset, which is so strange. And they're just making their presence felt in diplomacy, with the G20 and all of that. UN reforms, we're pushing for that. But just geopolitically, it becomes extremely important. The Indo-Pacific region is the most important region where things could flare up. And India is a central actor there. And the US is very much involved with India in the Indo-Pacific itself. So the world is changing, and it's not what it used to be. And, come 2050, it's going to be a completely different world. And the US is going to have new allies. It better ally up right now. It's a different world, and we are headed for different. Experts predict major world wars, let's say. I have my own predictions on that, but they're going to come. It won't happen this year. It's in the near future. That will wreck the entire establishment. And from the ashes of that, there will be a completely new order, even from what we see today. So for all of these reasons, I think India becomes so pivotal. And for the first time, I think in 75 years, we have great leadership, and we have great ambassadors who are, it's the India story that everybody is so excited about, right? And then tech, AI, chips are the future. And in those areas, I think India is particularly going to take a dominant position. So I'm very excited. I think India is a responsible, mature country. So unlike China, a world where India is taking very much a leadership role is, I think, a safe world. I think the world is in safe hands. Whereas with some of these other military dictatorship or rogue states, when they are in power or in charge, as we have seen with COVID, we get a little taste of what the world could be, and it's not pretty. I think nobody wants that kind of thing permanently. So I think the West needs to understand that it's a changing world, and I think they need to get better allies, get better partners, because that's their biggest mistake in the past, is people that they have allied up with who have completely betrayed them and taken them for a ride, and they can't afford to do that again. So yeah, it's a very exciting new world waiting for us.
Yeah, with the United States, it's interesting. You mentioned this earlier, this whole kind of American exceptionalism business, feeling as though that the United States is the best and the greatest, and all of this kind of stuff. And in many ways, the United States has led
Yes.
in much of the success these other countries are having. Uh, China, India, in many ways they're emulating certain things that made America great in the beginning, right? So, okay, that's fine.
Mm.
However, this idea that uh, we're the best, we'll always be the best, and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff is just hogwash. And there's space. There's plenty of
Yeah.
space for multiple parties to uh, you know to have a strong economy, to be able to um,
Lead
contribute.
the world, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, lead the world and to contribute products of significance.
absolutely.
Whether intellectual or products, actual commodities, and it's just
It's
it's just
mind-blowing,
irritating.
right? Because no other country speaks like this. So it is the beauty of the multipolarity that we are living in today, is that there are many centers of power, and there is space for others. In fact, you are supposed to have multiple actors. And I agree that I think what America stands for is great: freedom, independence, all those things, but they're not unique to India. They have existed in other civilizations, other countries. I think America's made it its central, core values, which is great. But moving forward, I mean, other countries have other things to offer. America is a baby. You're a few hundred years old. You can't compare yourself to a country like India that is 5,000 years plus and is still continuing,
Yeah.
unlike, so Persia, for example, doesn't exist today. It is an ancient civilization. Persia doesn't exist. Iran does. Iran is not Persia, even though it's the same place, geographically. But with India, it's the same people, it's the same entity. It, was kingdoms before, got occupied, got free. Now it's a democracy, but it is the same civilizational state that it was thousands of years ago. And the demography hasn't changed, even with all of those invasions and colonization. You look at the makeup of India, 85% they are of the majority religion, which is the native religion of India, right? So it didn't convert like every other place. So that's the beauty of it, withstood all of that. And American exceptionalism is fine, but we need to be careful, not so that we don't go into American ignorance, or American arrogance, because it is so easy to go into that space. And America wasn't involved directly in the two world wars that were European wars that dragged the whole world into those wars. Plus, unfortunately, all the developing countries they also faced the brunt. They paid the price as well for a war that wasn't theirs. The US wasn't involved in the way that the UK, Germany, Russia were, right? So, okay, so they financially, and as far as people, their manpower, it wasn't a huge disadvantage to them. They didn't lose out in that way. And so post these wars, it was the rich country, and it was able to, take assume the role of the new leader now that the empire is dead. So they're very lucky in that way. Now, had they been directly involved, would have been different. Now, this next war that's going to come up, US is going to be directly involved in it. And unfortunately, financially, economically, and also in terms of its own troops and all that, arms and everything, it will be directly involved. and it will take it'll face it'll face it head on. So the next war, you're not going to have the same situation where it's going to remain rich and prosperous while the whole world around it is collapsing. So this is what they need to get ready for, which I don't think they're ready. When I speak at all of these events, it's very interesting. I like the optimism. I'm very optimistic myself, but you have to be pragmatic, and you have to have the humility of the knowledge, awareness of the world around you. And that I don't see yet, but let's see what will happen. I think in the next few years, you'll see more people waking up to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not an optimist. I'm a realist. And I have been in my various programs, and I've been saying this for some years now. I think we have begun the descent to the end.
Mm.
I think it's downhill, and there's many social issues. There's a signal by this sort of social reengineering that's going on, and certain things that are being prioritized over stuff like being able to read at an adequate level, or math skills. That goofy stuff that has no place in the classroom. Why are we even allowing this in the classroom? Why is this an issue? Why are we even talking about this? This is totally ridiculous. So stuff has begun plummeting quickly to to the end. That's actually my view. Now you frequently say namaste at the beginning of your remarks.
Yes.
And in your bio is a quote from you. Here's the quote: "My aim is to empower lives and see them through their difficulties, encouraging them to spread their wings and reach their highest potential, helping them discover themselves, that they may see more clearly the path which they are on and the road they are to take to reach their destination, reaching their highest goals, fulfilling their greatest aspirations." So, my question is, has your religious outlook impacted the shape of your career?
That's a fantastic question. Well, it has actually not just career, it has shaped my life, my own perspective of not the world so much, but of my own existence and of existence itself. The more deeper I get into my own culture, my own faith, because it's such a rich tradition with amazing texts which have such mind-blowing truths, and it's such a it's funny that this movie Oppenheimer has come up, and Oppenheimer was a lifelong fan of Hinduism and of the Indian philosophy of the Vedic tradition, as were most quantum physicists at the time, because from their perspective, they would read the Hindu scriptures and they would say, well, this is what we are talking about too, the energy, infinity, the oneness, all of that. It was such a scientific faith. It was compatible, I think, with their understanding of the world, because usually science and religion, we bifurcate them, there's a separation. But in the case of Hinduism, you don't have to bifurcate it. It's talking about the same thing. So back in the day, the most famous scientists of our time were enamored with Vedic philosophy, and it inspired them, I think, a great deal. Many of them actually converted to Hinduism. And I wish more Americans knew this, or I wish this came out more in pop culture, because it did happen. It's well documented, but we just don't talk about it. And if more people knew, they would understand the correlation. I think they would have maybe a new level of respect and appreciation maybe for that kind of thinking, which is very open and inclusive and that's why I think they always say things like Sanskrit is the most AI friendly language because of its nature. It's decentralized, it's open, it's very inclusive, and just on so many levels, it becomes very easy to, you know, think about the world in those terms if you have that kind of worldview. So it becomes very easy for, I guess, myself as a Hindu to move into the future, because whatever the future is trying to show us, the good bits, I mean, the technological and scientific world that we see the future as, uh, that is not in cahoots with my worldview anyway, or my understanding of the possibilities of existence. So it has affected me in my career because I understand the concept dharma. Now, this is used, it's funny, like karma, everybody in the world uses that. It's a Sanskrit word, it comes from the Hindu faith. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Karma doesn't mean equal reaction. No, it doesn't. Karma actually means action. That's it. It means to perform your duty. It doesn't mean if you do something, something else is going to happen. It's just the first part. It's just do what you're meant to do the right thing, you know. And I mean, Americans will take to this message because, again, the central message of America is, you know, do the right thing, you know, fight for your freedom, for to be free, and all of those wonderful things. So do the action. That's the karma, you know, that's karma. And then the other word is dharma, which again is, I mean, Steve Bannon had a documentary called American Dharma, you know, so even Steve Bannon is using this, and it's a wonderful term. It means purpose, what you came here to do, right? And everybody needs to find their own dharma. For some, it's to be the great MLK or Gandhi, change the world, you know. And for others, it's just to be a great father, parent, teacher, nurse, you know, many things. And I think you have to go within, and that's where spirituality and the meditative process comes in, because you have to go within to listen to your inner soul, to find out why you're here. And once you find that, you have to have the courage, like I did, to leave everything behind and, you know, move to the other side of the world by yourself if you have to follow your purpose. And very few people are willing to do that. So for me, my faith actually has helped me, and also my understanding of success, my understanding of how things manifest. You know, it's not all what you see, what appears on the surface isn't all that there is. There's so much more. And I think in Hollywood, unfortunately, people think that their fame is their identity. They're like, oh, I'm an actor, I'm a superstar, I am Tom Cruise. No, that's not who you are. You're a spiritual being having a physical existence, a physical experience in the world. Uh, this time around, you happen to work in this field, and your ego identity may be Tom Cruise, but who you really are, your soul is something different, right? And why you came here, inspire the world at large. And all, you know, somebody of his stature, the global platform that he has, and all the great things he can do for humanity, which he has done. He's charitable, just like a lot of, actually a lot of celebrities are, which is good to see. But you know, the effect that they can have is profound, and through their fame is also part of their own destiny as well, their own fate. I think it's all interconnected. They're meant to be this successful because I think they can do something for the world. So it has affected me enormously. I think my idea of success and fame and all of that, that's why I don't get depressed. I'm not jaded with Hollywood so many years after, you know, since I've lived here, because I see my own purpose as something different.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So purpose and action. That's just this is great. And so I so I'm Christian. I'm Orthodox Christian. And one, I think, unfortunate thing about a particular brand of Christianity, this sort of Protestantism, in particular, this sort of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in particular, uh, there's an issue where I think there tends to be a lot of misunderstandings about the compatibility of different ideas. So one thing that I think is interesting is this sort of very kind of exclusivist sort of
Mhm.
perspective that tends to be very much more Protestant. The Catholics and Orthodox tend to be very much more open, and the early church conception of, all truth is God's truth, right? If it's true, then it's true. Now, there was attention to uh, being prescriptive about certain things that were known to be true, but things that are not written about, uh, it is no, uh, what I'm going to say, it's no heresy to embrace things as truth that haven't been prescripted or described specifically to shun, right? So there's a much more kind of an open sort of perspective there, or disposition. The second thing I think is interesting is, although uh, Protestants seem to be very much more science versus religion, uh, Catholics in Orthodox tend to be very much science and religion are seen as really very much the same thing, different sides of the same coin, right? They're using a different methodology to come to similar conclusions in many ways, right? And it's unfortunate. Um, there, in my upbringing, I didn't grow up Orthodox, but I grew up. My mother took us to church, and when I'd ask certain questions that were, uh, you know, deeper than questions about what a particular scripture meant, if I was asking about, well, why do we believe that the Bible is, why do we even read the Bible? What is up with the Bible? Where did the Bible come from?
Mhm.
How do we arrive at this canon of scripture? When I would ask these kinds of questions, that was seen as being sort of defiant, and rather than uh, actually an expression of my intellect. I mean, I must it must be here first before it goes anywhere else. For me, that's the way that I'm designed, right? And unfortunately, there's a sort of approach to Christianity that is much more about dogma
Mhm.
and less about the sort of individuals' search, what their process needs to be for them to get to the point where they can believe something or agree with something. And so that's unfortunate, but in many ways, what you described are things that I totally, you know,
Mhm.
practically everything you said, I totally agree with. We use different words
Yeah.
for them, but uh, very very much so. This purpose in action, I
Yeah.
like. I like that. Um, I wanted to ask you something about. Uh, so you seem to be a music lover.
Oh,
So
yeah, I do.
yeah, and in fact, I first saw you in the audience at my concert at the Freedom Fest, and
Ah.
and then also uh, on your Instagram, you have footage of you at a concert enjoying music. Uh, I know you had a career in film. How important are the arts, especially for young people, with respect to their development as a person?
Oh, so important. I think art is one of those few things, like books, I would say, that can transcend across cultures, ages, religions, countries, and just touch people. It's a great vehicle uh, by which you can express yourself. I think we need more of that, but we need the right kind of music. We don't, not destructive music with very denigrating and demeaning
Mm.
lyrics. By the way, which you can find in you can find that kind of lyrics and music across the world, the stuff that's destructive. It's not just rap and hip hop or whatever. In every culture, they have their version of some kind of music. Like in India, we do it too. We have a lot of all this beautiful music, classical music, and then you got some bad stuff. I mean, you got some badass music too. I mean, it's very catchy, great to dance to. But you look at what they're talking about, you think, is this really the world that you want to
Yeah.
live in? It's not good. It's very
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
to the
I call it.
rap lyrics.
Yeah. I call it "Baby, Take Your Clothes Off" music.
All that, it's so bad. And the sad thing is that it's very catchy stuff because everybody wants to get down to it. But yeah, if you really take a moment to read, and the thing is that you have young boys listening to this, it gets ingrained. You have young girls listening to this, they think, oh, it's okay for me to go, I'm 15, it's okay to go start getting physical and stuff like that. It's not, you're very young. You should not be even involved in any of this stuff until you're 18. And parents can't always supervise. Just teachers aren't always there. And today with the technology, it's like people are self-governing themselves. And you have 12, 13-year-olds, the way that they think and speak. Back in the day, you'd have people, you'd have a lot, people would have been a lot older to even kind of go there. But I love music. It transcends. I love jazz. And I think Memphis was amazing because I didn't realize how incredible the blues are and how historical they are and how other types of music came from the blues. So for anybody who loves music, I think you should go to Memphis and Nashville for sure. Go to the South. That's where all the real good music is. And they've there's a lot of live music out there and people appreciate it, and a lot of talent out there. So I would urge the rest of America and the rest of the world to go to these musical cities in America because they're incredible, the level of music out there.
Yeah. So my quartet was performing Dr. Thunder Quartet, and then we backed up Daryl. And part of also what we did was I led a panel where Daryl was one of the panelists. It was called Black American Music: The Memphis Impact on American Music. And when you want to talk about sort of revisionism, revisionist history, there's a lot of important black figures that are there's an attempt to marginalize their
Mm,
impact, um, and you see sort of so say rock and roll, right? So rock and roll really was rhythm and blues. It was really R
yes.
and B, but the marketing for it was in whiteface, right? So you took a lot of the same songs, even the term cover.
Hmm.
This is a cover song. A cover band or cover. Cover actually was when a record company would take the music of a black artist and do it with an all white band.
Wow. Yes, true.
That was that was a cover. But now we use the term cover, and no fault to people that use the term and don't mean anything racist by it. But the history of that term is profoundly racist. That was the
Wow.
purpose of that term. You know. Um, okay. I have, and I know you have to get going. I have just a couple more questions I want to ask you. Um, so, uh, I'm a fitness advocate, and you're fit, you're in shape, you travel a lot.
I
And
do.
how do you stay in shape? I mean,
Well,
uh,
it's funny because I think for me, my travels are part of my fitness regime. I just spent 2 weeks in 2 months 2 whole months in Europe, mainly in the south of France, but I went to Africa. I went to all around Europe.
Mm.
And I came back and I'm in the best shape of my life, because Europe and Asia, by the way, because it's healthy, the food is great. You walking a lot, it's warm, and your portions are smaller. You're drinking a very good wine, eating very, very
Mhm.
high quality good food, and you're happy, and you're just enjoying life and the beautiful nature and weather, and you don't, you do that for a few months or a few weeks, oh my god, you will be in the best shape of your life. It has that effect on me. I don't know about other people. I'm sure a lot of people would go to France and Italy, and they come back, they put on weight because they've had maybe too much pasta or whatever. But in my case, it's always been, wherever I go. Asia is another great place. Africa, I was in Morocco this time, and the food is phenomenal there. But it was, I'm pescatarian. I mainly eat vegetarian food. So, I just had vegetarian food over there, and it was phenomenal. It was light, delicious, and different. And I enjoyed it so much. And I try to stay away from the sweet stuff, and no caffeine and stuff. So it just, my lifestyle diet is so good. And I love to walk, because I've always lived in cities, whether it's Sydney or even the Middle East. Actually, even Dubai is a great city to walk around. And but I've grown up always walking everywhere, enjoying it so much. So when you start covering the city on foot, it's great. You burn a lot of calories. You get to see the real place. So it's important for, some people work out when they travel. I don't have that luxury, because I'm traveling too much for that, and I change hotels too often for that. But for me, I think my diet, and also I guess you want to call it aerobics or whatever, I incorporate that into my when I travel, because I travel every month. I go, or globally, I'm in different places and stuff. So it incorporated, and I'm going to, just found out that I'm going to be going to Venice, Italy soon, and the weather will be great. And again, that's another great city to just, it's endless streets and alleys, and the food is phenomenal. Great wine, great cocktails and stuff, and just really good vibes. So I look forward to my European adventure that's going to be happening next month. So yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So we were talking about um, we were talking about music. We were talking about messaging that's in the music, um, and a lot of the more popular music seems to have a lot of negative messaging in it. Um, and there are certain artists that seem to want to promote certain things.
Hmm.
Um, we have this body positivity stuff going on now, and although I think it's positive for people
Yes.
to love themselves
Yeah.
and to respect themselves, um, it's also uh, it also seems to be promoting something that is uh, profoundly unhealthy, something that is going to likely shorten people's life. Not
Yes.
likely, it's a scientific fact. It's a medical
Yep.
fact that when you carry a lot of weight
Yeah.
over the time, it does damage to you, and you're going to die earlier. That's what's going to happen. There's no such thing as fit fat. I know that that is a thing that people say
Wow.
that, but that is not actually the case. And I'm very concerned about this. There's a disproportion. There's an issue in the black community in particular
Yeah.
where um, our health is not good.
Yeah.
Black men in particular, our age, our life expectancy is 65. That's
Wow,
the
that's
average.
low. Yeah.
65. Okay. Now it's due to diet and due to a bunch
Yeah.
of other things, due to some violent stuff. There's all kinds of other things that are factored into that. Um, uh, our women are tend to be it's the same thing. Men and
Yeah.
women in black community tend to be way heavier than they should be. And you have people like Lizzo that are very pushy with their look at me, look at me. I'm trying to normalize this. I'm trying to make this seem like I want you to feel okay with
Mm-hmm.
being so unhealthy that you're probably going to die early. Um, and what's interesting about Lizzo, who is super talented, she's super talented, great singer. She's super creative, plays different instruments, all of that kind of stuff. I think she went to school for music. Um, okay, so that's great. Um, she's actually very athletic because she'll do a 90-minute show, and she's doing all of this stuff, dancing and doing all of this stuff and doing all the stuff that she has to do. And you have to be athletic and have to have a certain amount of endurance to be able to do that. However, and as you just pointed out, it's not just about going to the gym, it's about what you eat. And there is just, I think what you said is totally true. Other places in the world, the food is just better for you.
Oh yeah, healthy
It is
quality and
just better.
portions are uh, reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
a yeah, sorry, I have some very strong views on this issue. It's touchy, and I want to be diplomatic, and I hope I don't say things out of line here. I think we have to find, as a society, as a world, globally, right? We have to find a way where we can promote self-love, self-respect, self-acceptance in its own entirety, and not conflate it with other issues, because at the moment what's happening, they're conflating different things, and they're saying you must love yourself, and in order to love yourself you must do this. And I think that's where the issue is. You can just focus on the self-love, self-respect, self-acceptance, which is important. And you're right, I think there is a need for men and women to feel accepted. You know, we live in a very polarized, toxic world that is bigoted, that is racist, that there is inherent discrimination globally. You think it's bad in America? Try going to some other parts of the world and you see how bad it is over there. You think America is a godsend, you know. And it's sad to say that because things aren't perfect over here, but it happens because it's human nature. It's a human quality: discrimination, hate, bigotry, prejudice. These are inherent human qualities. We can never eradicate them. Anybody who tells you we are going to wipe this out, this malice, it will never be moved, because it's, as long as humans are alive, you will have these qualities, these let's say values inherent present in the world. So we have to find a way to separate that. Some interesting statistics that shocked me were, did you know that the US is, I think, the second most obese country in the world, second to Tonga? Tonga is a different issue because it's an island, and the people there, they're not, I mean, it's their build, right? They just have a certain, men and women, Tonga, Samoa, right? They have a certain build over there. It's not even because of their diet and lifestyle. They've had that for generations. So they're number one. And number two, apparently, is the US in terms of the obesity levels. I'm horrified. Out of 200 countries, you're the second largest country. And 4 out of 5 women in the African American community is overweight. That,
Yeah.
if that's an accurate statistics, that should terrify you. And the average weight for a American female is 170, which is over, that's fat no matter what your height is. And the average height for females in the US is quite short. They are not, it's not like Dutch or whatever, they're all very tall. No, average height is quite short. They're short, you know, petite. And then the average weight for men is, I think, close to 185 or something ridiculous like that. That's overweight no matter what your height is. And most men are not, 6'5" or whatever. Those are not good numbers, right? So we have to find, and the more we go in this direction, life expectancy, diabetes, stroke, cancer, every disease under the sun, depression, addicted to opioids. Oh my God, you know, it's so sad. Such a rich, prosperous, powerful country. And we have the sad diet, we have the standard American diet, which is really contributing to all of this. And because it's so cheap and available, it's so enticing, no matter what your economic status is, just Pizza Hut, McDonald's, sodas, because it's right there, right? So I think this is a whole culture that we have to fix today, or else tomorrow's not looking pretty. And I don't think we have 100 years, for us. I think the ramifications of this catch us on immediately. And we're seeing it, we're seeing people dropping, forget COVID, but the number of deaths related to heart disease, cardiovascular disease, breathing, diabetes, stroke. Oh my God, the numbers are off the chart. It's not normal for such a developed country to have these statistics. So something has to be done. I think we have to take health and wellness very, very seriously in America, which we don't.
Yeah, we definitely do not. So 60, what is it? 67% of black women are obese in America. 60 is obese. So not just the overweight.
Overweight, yeah.
Obese. Yeah. So yeah.
And we
So
have to have a
that's a
conversation. That's enormous. And we have to have a conversation where nobody is fat shaming anyone. It's like, no, this is for
right.
you. This is for your health. It's not for me. It's not for us. It's not for the country. This is so you can live a longer, healthier life, happier life, and for your family, so that you're around longer, right? Do it for your kids, do it for your family, do it for your partner. And, and the body positivity is very important. Self-image is very important, but you have to separate it, or you have to incorporate well-being into it. So you find a campaign where you say that, when you work out, when you eat better, then you actually love yourself, which is a fact. If you really loved and respected your body, and your body is your temple, you would not be putting poison and toxicity and trash into it, right? So I think again, this is like in from my faith, we treat the body as a temple. So you find, in India, a lot of people are vegetarian for that reason, right? And they don't have a lot of the issues that we have in some of the other developed country, or I shouldn't say developed countries, I should say West, because India is developed in its own way. But we just don't have the same issues, right? I mean, yeah. So I think we have to find a way where we can have these conversations, and nobody's feeling hurt and insecure, because that's not the it's not the intention of anybody to make anybody feel bad about themselves. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I recently did a show where Lizzo was the subject, and she recently said uh, she's careful not to use the term health conscious because that's loaded. So it's a pejorative, right? Because so health conscious is a pejorative. So now she uses holistic conscious.
Oh.
And but the problem with this is there's nothing holistic about what it is that she's talking about. She just doesn't want to use health conscious
Mm.
because upon viewing her, you know that she's not healthy. Yeah, it's obvious that she's not healthy. Um, and Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not about teasing somebody or trying to shame somebody or laughing at somebody or making fun of somebody. It's none of that. It's, look, you have a huge platform and you can use it to do something positive, or you can use it literally to be shaving off years of millions of people's lives because they believe this garbage that she's putting out there.
Mhm.
It's terrible. It's really not good. And it's particularly not good for
For women.
the black community.
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah,
it's funny
right.
because, yeah, and it's I I mean, if you take a nuanced approach to it, it's happening it's as a pushback to years or decades of the publishing industry, media, society telling us what beauty standards are, which were also distorted to begin with, right? That what they were doing was also very damaging to young men, but especially young girls across the board of all races. When they are saying you have to be a size 0, you have to be a stick figure, and you have to have this kind of hair and have this kind of skin, when when you're being fed with that message for decades on end, globally, it's not a surprise that there is going to be a strong pushback. It was growing, I think, but now it's reached a boiling point, and now they're giving it right back. The problem is it doesn't help anybody, because it's not a good response to all this distortion that had been happening in the media for so long, which is so wrong and immoral. And I think media and publications and society, I mean, just even just TV and movies, even, they have to take responsibility for their part in damaging society in that way. But what's happening now is not helping anyone, because it's too much. It's not a natural, organic, uh, healthy sort of alternative to it. It's going the other extreme, and this is what we're seeing, whether it's in politics or in with this topic too. That the two opposites, right? And nobody's there in the middle, and the answer really lies in the middle. So I and also, okay, African American women, I'm sure they have been, uh, and maybe sometimes other races don't appreciate the reality of this. But when you've been told forever that you are not the global standard of the beauty in the world and all these things, you develop this sense of self-loathing, inferiority complex. It's all subconscious. I don't think any of this is conscious. It's deeply embedded within you, and unfortunately it's very easy to for that to hit to, F you world, I don't care about you and your standards. I'm going to go do what I want, live my life the way I want, and I'm going to go be a rebel and go out. And that's what's happening as well sometimes in different communities, different ethnic communities, because they don't want to be under some standard that was set by someone else that might not necessarily apply to them. So they want to completely go off in the other direction. And in doing that, unfortunately, they also take the high road, well, not the high road, I think, in this case, and they go do things that are just not holistic or healthy or any of that nature. So I think somebody who should address all of these issues should take the nuanced point and should reference what's been happening for decades, because sometimes we don't see that. So we see it, we see insensitive people with zero empathy saying, you're fat, you need to lose weight, what's going on? That's not gonna motivate anybody to to be better, although tough love is it can be helpful. I think in this case it is so sensitive. You're talking about hundreds of millions of people potentially that need to be moved by this, but need to be inspired, really. So I think what's missing is empathy as well. So it's a big job for thought leaders around the world, to do something. And I think people from the African American community need to come up and talk about this. Only they can address this. I don't think you want some white person, some skinny white chick going on about health, and it's not a good look. It's not good. It's not gonna work. So you need somebody from your community to speak about the big picture and inspire people in that way.
Yes, yes, I think that's a good point. Of course, we have the same sort of issues going on with this sort of cancel culture, right? Where if you have opinions or views that are not they're not in the Overton window, they're outside of the Overton window, then that's an issue. And I'll tell you personally, uh, because there's a lot of speech that has sort of been canceled, you know, topics, expressions, things that have been canceled because they're been considered to be racist or whatever. And I'm going to tell you right now, I would prefer knowing that someone is racist by something that they say rather than them learning how to be clever and hide their racism because of a banned list of communication. I'd rather just know that you're somebody that I shouldn't trust, that I should not have around me or my family. I certainly can't depend on. That would be better information from me. So I'm a free speech 100%. Say what you're going to say, racist or not. I recognize that everybody is at least a little bit racist. That's how I think of it.
Well,
Everybody's at
it's
least a little bit
an
racist,
inherent
and
human quality. It
right,
just we're prejudiced. We have preferences. Everyone has preferences. There is nothing wrong with that. I think when it's combined with hate for no reason, then it becomes bigotry, and that's not good. And then if you are now going to discriminate somebody based on that bigotry, that's not okay. And then when you do it as a society, as a group, as a system, that's not
yeah,
okay. And that's what we
no,
need to fight. Yeah.
yes, definitely. All right. Well, if do you have anything else that you'd like to say, or maybe a concluding statement? I think this has been a great conversation. Barely even scratched the surface. There's like a
Yeah,
billion
there's
more
so much.
things that
I'll
we
have
can
to
talk
come
about.
back. There's so much more to talk about. It's so interesting, I think, to find the middle ground. And, even at the event that we were at, it was interesting. It was like many different groups coming together. They disagreed on some things, they agreed on some things. It was quite eye-opening. And it's funny that for this topic or the value, I should say, of freedom, you have many different disjointed groups coming together that would never not usually wouldn't have anything common with each other. But it's good that they're all coming. So you have the Christian right, you've got the atheists, you've got the gun advocates, you've got um, left, right, and center, you got libertarians, you got apolitical people, you have the America First people, you got a lot of MAGA fans, you got people who love the Green Party and the third party candidates. So you got all of these different groups coming together because they all realize that what's missing today and what's really under threat is freedom, and freedom on all levels. So that's the commonality, not just in the US, but globally, I'm seeing that. So it's good that we're coming together. I think we can sort of hash out our differences a little bit more. I'm all about seeing the similarities in people than the differences, because we're all the same. Spiritually, energetically, we are all the same, right? And it helps to look at the world in that spiritual, philosophical way, in a way, because you don't see the others. So when I do the namaste, I'm simply the divine being in me is recognizing the divine being in you. That's the real explanation or the meaning of the namaste. So it becomes it's powerful, when they're saying the real inner me bows down to the inner you. And even beyond that, it's the divinity in me bows down to the divinity in you. So it's wonderful if we really treated each other in that way. That's a beautiful world. I hopefully in my lifetime we can see a shift towards that. But it's been interesting with what's going on. And I think we both and several like-minded people should be playing a very important role, I think, in this sort of movement for the better. And I think we need thought leaders from everywhere, but you have to be the leader yourself too. That's what I'm understanding. So yeah, very exciting new brave world out there, and I can't wait to get more involved for sure. Thank you so much for having me on your show again.
All right, now you be well.
Thank you.
All right, peace.